Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to what I'm calling this video to be the mashup. And the reason I'm calling it that is I know this is supposed to be Footy Fridays and it's going to be promoted as the Robbie Basel show, but it's going to be a mix of everything because there's so much to go over that I feel like we have to put it all into one video. I know you're hoping for some soccer talk. Don't worry, second half of the video, there will be a ton of soccer discussion from the Prem. We have a game to do this weekend. I'll talk about that in the beginning of the video. We have teams that can probably clinch relegation this week. It's all kicking up. But in the beginning, we're going to talk Final Four. We're going to talk some other storylines going on in the world of sports today. And Formula One's this week. So I feel like we have to talk F1 because of all the stuff that's going on. But today's video, I'm going to begin with two announcements because that's what we're doing here. First off, it's actually going to be three. My apologies for no video on Tuesday. I'm going to try and be better with letting you guys know if there's going to be no video at the beginning of the week. I know next week, um, Friday's video might not come out on Friday. I'm still trying to figure out that schedule. WIUR has broadcasting games on Fridays, and I don't really have time to film the video. So I'm still trying to piece out what's the best time to film, or if for the next couple of weeks, if those videos are going to go on Saturdays in the morning before Premier League action begins. I don't know. So make sure to follow the RBTV Instagram to catch all the updates regarding the schedules, because I know next semester the schedule will be different when I come back here for my surprisingly senior year. Yeah, chat. I'm gonna be a senior next fall, which is absurd. But we're not thinking about the future that far yet. We because there's one event this week on this channel that I'm thinking can determine the future of some of the content that will be going on here. And this weekend, on Sunday, it will be the first watch along of a sport on this channel. Yes, there will be a full-on broadcast on this channel. It will be likely be just me. There may be somebody else. I don't know. But that game will be the Manchester Derby at 11:30 on Saturday. It's going to be complete and utter chaos. It's fifth place Man City. It's 13th place Manchester United. We have all the graphics. Essentially everything's ready to go. We just have to start the match, and it's a game where we'll definitely preview it today. I mean, this was the date where I thought we would start it all in the first place with the broadcast, and we finally made it. I finally have time to do it. So this weekend, Manchester Derby. I know a lot of people will be watching on TV, but I'll be commentating it here. If plans change, it'll be Chelsea against Brentford. So a game will happen on Sunday. I just don't know when yet. But make sure to, like I said, check RBTV for all the updates. It will likely be United City, 11:30 a.m. coverage beginning. Um, I believe at 11:15 because we'll go over the games being the beginning of the day, and we'll have graphics and stuff for everything. So Man City, Manchester United at Old Trafford. I can't wait. It'll be right here on RBTV. I'll wake up early, commentate some football. I can't wait for that. Additionally, to wrap up the announcement portion of the video, I will be on the radio tomorrow. So, WIR radio. It's men's lacrosse. I'm doing with my good buddy Charlie Brooks. That game was supposed to be on ESPN, but um, weather is annoying. Or whatever complications we have. So it won't be on ESPN. It will be on WIUR. So hopefully you guys can check it out. Game begins at opening face-off. I believe is 24 hours from when I'm making this video, which is 2 p.m. Eastern time. So yeah, if you guys can check it out, it'd be greatly appreciated. It's going to be a good day. Can't wait to do the game, obviously. You got the equipment a while ago, and we're going to be ready to go for another weekend of WIUR. Um, yeah, I mean, WIUR, I'm president next year. There'll be more of an official announcement about that. soon, but I think I talked about it last week, where I got named president, and now I have stuff I want to push forward, similar to content we're doing on here, but not really. But yeah, more updates for certain events to be coming up soon. So let's get into some sports, shall we? I've talked for 5 minutes. And I haven't talked about a sport yet. So let's get right into it. And today we're going to begin with the Final Four. So right now is tomorrow, from when this video is going out on Saturday, is the men's college basketball Final Four. We finally made it. I know I haven't talked college basketball really throughout the March Madness series season, but yeah, the last month, you guys know the situation with content and with my schedules recently, but not the point. Today, we're going to preview the Final Four. I'm going to make my picks for who I believe will be the national champion because there's a couple of great games that we get to check out on Saturday. And listen, man, Saturday night's gonna be lit. Whether you're going to watch, whether you're going out partying or whether you're going out and watching college basketball, it's gonna be a good day. And tomorrow's opening game, we got Florida against Auburn. So it's Florida, Auburn, Duke, Houston. All four one seeds made it. And before we go over that, I just want to summarize March Madness in this year in a couple of words and throw out some hate for what some people have said about the tournament this year. The big thing this year, a big complaint was the lack of upsets. And I kind of get where people are coming from, but people are saying NIL is ruining the money. I think the big thing that's changed, I think NIL does have something to do with it, and some of these mid-major schools will be hurt in the long run because of it. I think that's very possible. But one thing that we have to consider is the dominance of some of the teams at the top. We have to acknowledge that just the one seeds are just better than everyone. I think we did something we just all have to accept. Duke, Houston, Florida, and Auburn were the four best teams. I didn't have a lot of confidence in Auburn. I thought they were going to be the one seed that dropped out early in the tournament. I thought they had a terrible run of form going into the tournament. I just didn't have a lot of confidence in them. I had them losing in the second round in my bracket. That didn't work out very well, obviously, because they're in the Final Four and they play in the opening game of the Final Four on Saturday as they take on Florida. What did the paths look like for some of these teams? Florida's path was actually a little bit more difficult than we thought it would be. Of course, they played Norfolk State. They ran them out of the gym, though it got closer than it should be. Later in the second half, Florida wasn't playing their style of basketball. They're up by so much. Walter Clayton to God. We'll get back to him later. They then followed it up by playing a very, very tough out in UConn, which when I saw that matchup possibility, I was like, oh my days, we're going to get a real dogfight. And we did. And UConn really pushed Florida. And I thought that Florida was going to lose at one point, but no, Florida pulled it out in the end. Then Florida went out and beat up on Maryland, and then Florida came from behind in a very good game against a Texas Tech team that just straight up blew it. I don't know a better way to put it than Tech blowing it. I don't think there's a way to put it. But Florida have had a lot of big name contributors, and we're going to go over some of them, and we'll go over who to watch out for in this game tomorrow on Saturday. So, first off, Walter Clayton, transfer from Iona 2 years ago now, which it still pains me to death that he played here. I had class with the guy back in my first semester here. Yeah, first semester freshman year. He was in my intro to media class. We took class together. We did do a project at like 3 in the morning. Him and another basketball player, Anton Brookshire, we were all in a group together and we had to do the project. Not the point. He's Walt puts on a clinic. He puts on an absolute clinic. Overall for the season, he's averaging 18 points per game with 3.5 rebounds and just about 4 assists. But the big thing for him, he shoots a lot of contested threes, like shots that just shouldn't be thrown up, and he just makes them. I think that's the easy way to put it. I mean, if you've watched moments against UConn, moments again at the end against Texas Tech, Walter Clayton, after a free throw's missed, dribbles out to the top of the key for three, just fires one out of nowhere, dribbles all the way out, turn around, three-pointer, bang, Florida leads. Doesn't make sense? Absolutely not. But this is Florida. This is Walter Clayton. None of the shots he makes any sense half the time. And the guy's been going absolutely crazy. If you look at his numbers from the NCAA tournament, he has 4 games over 20 points scored. The other game, the one game that he didn't was Maryland, and that game wasn't even good to begin with because Florida ran them out of the gym. But Clayton didn't play well against Maryland. He plays great against. So in the 4 tournament games, I had 5 for some reason because the last five games, including the SEC tournament final against Tennessee, Clayton Jr. has had 4 games over 20 points. He's going to be the key X factor for this Florida group going into a duel with Auburn, who I don't even know what to expect from them. But one other player, maybe to watch out for Florida. I mean, they have one of the guys I really like on this team is Thomas Howe. I think a lot of people have been talking about him off the bench. Howe, the forward from New Oxford, PA, he's been great for them as well. Against Tech, he had 20 points, back-to-back games with 13 or more points for Howe after struggling against UConn. Since that UConn game, he hasn't struggled really at all. 13 points and 20 points. He could be a really big X factor off the bench. I'm expecting him to be the X factor off the bench for the Gators. They have Condon as well. They have what's his name? They have Will Richard, who I think is pretty good as well. He's averaging over 13 points per game this season. This Florida team is very good. The issue for them is they're not very deep, and that was one of the things that hurt some teams early on in the tournament. One of them was Louisville. If you remember Louisville, they went up against Creighton, and Creighton ran them out of the gym because lack of depth on Louisville. And I think that could happen as they're going up against a really, really good Auburn team, an Auburn team that had one of my Final Four teams, Michigan State, ousted in the Elite Eight. John I. Broome, who had 25 points. Broome is definitely going to try to sweep Florida out of the gym. You know the puns are coming out. Do you know what channel this is? Look at the box score. Let's look over. Nice. The one issue for Auburn, they have a lot of balanced scoring, but the scoring isn't enough for them to truly want to go toe to toe with Florida, if that makes sense. And what I mean by that is they had Broome get 25, they have Pettiford off the bench get 10. No one else has more than 8 points on that team. So you have 2 premier scorers in Broome and Clayton go toe to toe again in a matchup between, I believe, I mean, I think everyone knows it's 2 of the top 5 teams in the country in the Final Four. It's going to be so much fun. I just wish it started now, honestly. If you look at, let's look at the path for Auburn. It's a little bit different. By the way, these two, did they play in the regular season? They did, with Florida winning by 9. So Florida, on the road, they went out and they beat Auburn. But let's look at the path for the Tigers of Auburn. They went out, they played Alabama State, and they ran them out of the gym rather predictably. Then they played a really good Creighton team, a Creighton team that could rebound the ball well, they could shoot the ball lights out, and they went out and beat them. Then they played, I think, their biggest trap game against a team that's not Michigan State in Michigan, a Michigan team that looked really good in the first 2 rounds for them, coming just narrowly ahead of UC San Diego. They went out and they won their next matchup against the 4 seed in the region, and then they go up against the 1 seed Auburn, and in the end, they just collapsed. That's exactly the way I could put it. The second half, Auburn really showed their class after Michigan hung in that game. We're still in that game for so long. Then Auburn went out and found a way to beat Michigan State. Scores like Kelly and Broome and Pettiford, they're all going to be crucial going into the first game of Saturday night. And let's preview the game now. 2 teams that are going to go toe-to-toe. I think it's going to be a very high-scoring game. I'm picking Florida. They've looked like a team that can score more than the opposition. Defensively, in the first half, they've had a little bit of couple shaky moments. But in the back end of the second half, in nearly some of their come from behind wins from UConn and their most recent win against Texas Tech, and especially against Maryland, the second half was dominated by Florida. Granted, Auburn has dominated some of the second halves they've played in as well, but I know this Florida team can shoot the lights out. I am going with Florida to defeat Auburn. I think this game is going to be absolutely It's going to be a masterclass. I think those matchups will be really good. Broome, who averages 18.7 points per game, going up against Walter Clayton. It's going to be a great game. I am picking Florida by 5. I think the Gators have it. It's going to be very close. I can't wait. But I also can't wait for the second game. We have the number one scoring offense against the number one scoring defense, Duke versus Houston. Cooper Flag against this really good Houston team. Now, Houston, we have a problem. They're facing Cooper Flag. But the way this team is coached and the talent that's on display with this Houston group, it makes you feel like, well, how is this really going to go? I personally don't know. LJ Cryer has been a difference maker for them all season long, 15.4 points per game on the season. And of course, going up against Cooper Flag. Now, let's look at Houston's path to how they got here. Houston going out and beating the 16th seed SIUE. They went out and played a very tight one against Gonzaga before playing, once again, a tight one against the Purdue Boilermakers, a game that I thought Purdue were going to win in the end. And then they really ripped out my heart and soul and beat the team that I had in the Final Four out of this region in the Tennessee Volunteers. And they beat them by 19. And that's why I have Houston really being in this matchup from start to finish. They've, at points, have kept some teams in it for too long. Their opposition in it for too long. Gonzaga, Purdue, perfect examples of this. If you look at Houston's schedule throughout the year, I'm just looking at how they ended. They played a couple of really, really good teams. BYU being one of them. BYU, a very pesky out in the NCAA tournament this year. They beat the Cougars by 20. Houston beat BYU by 20. If you look at other teams that have been great, at Texas Tech, Houston beat them by 8. They beat Iowa State. They've beaten Arizona multiple times. They ended the year by beating Arizona. Houston has not lost a game, I believe, since February. When was the last time they lost a game? I don't even remember. They lost against Texas Tech at home by 1 point. This game is going to feature a masterclass, is going to need a masterclass on defense by the Houston Cougars to go up against John Shire's crew, headlined, of course, by Cooper Flag and Colin Kneppel. But hopefully I said his name right. Yeah. So they have Kneppel, they have Tyrese Proctor, who's really good, averaging 12.5 points per game. Kneppel, I think, really has grown into his own, averaging 14.4 points per game, second leading scorer on this Duke team, behind, obviously, with Cooper Flag. And the big question for Duke coming into this tournament was Cooper Flag being hurt. How much would he play throughout the NCAA tournament? And he hasn't really shied away from the big moment. Let's look at the most recent stat line from him. After getting, I believe, hurt against Georgia Tech, he comes out, he plays against the Mount. He doesn't really play all. He plays 22 minutes. They beat the Mount by a ton. That's that. They beat the Mount 93-49, which Iona would have probably played in that game. We would have lost by more. So just saying. Actually, no, I think we would have won by less. We would have scored enough. Mount St. Mary's doesn't score a lot. Then they went up against Baylor. Great game, by the way, for like 2 minutes. Duke beat Baylor. Actually, the first half was pretty close, and then Duke blew up Baylor in the second half. Duke won by 23. Then Duke played Arizona in a 7-point win for the Blue Devils. Cooper Flag dropping 30 in the win. And then he dropped 16 in a win over a very pesky Alabama team that, if we knew going into the tournament, Alabama doesn't play defense. Duke does. That's the difference. But it's the number one offense against the number one defense. And the big thing for me is some of these teams have been really good defensively throughout the year that Duke has faced, and Duke has found a way to come up on top. But Houston, they've played in, I believe, a stronger conference throughout the season and have had multiple tough outs in the NCAA tournament this year. On paper, obviously. And the path that Houston took and the strength of opponents that they've had makes me feel like they're more prepared to play Duke than anyone else. You have to go up against a great Gonzaga team, a very well-coached Gonzaga team. They have to play against Purdue, always a tough out in the NCAA tournament, unless you're Fairleigh Dickinson for some reason. And they play Tennessee, who I believe is a Final Four contender every day of the week and twice on Sundays. I am picking Houston to win this game because I feel like with the path they've had, they're more prepared to play a team like Duke. Duke hasn't faced a defense like this yet. Duke didn't play a defense last week when they played Bama. Yes, when they played Arizona, Arizona's a great team. Don't count that out. Arizona is a more complete team, and they went out and went toe to toe with Duke. The question is, can Houston score enough to go out and beat Duke in the end? That's the one worry for me about this Houston team. They don't score enough, but with the number one defense going up against the number one offense, I'm picking the defense for some reason, which is going completely against what I just said about Florida. I have Houston beating Duke to set up Florida against Houston on Monday night. And ladies and gentlemen, my national champion stays where it was. If you paid attention to my bracket challenges this year, I picked Florida to win the national championship from the get-go. I'm picking Florida to still win the Natty here. I have them going out and beating Houston in the championship. That Florida team can outscore the Houston defense. Duke can, but Duke doesn't defend enough. Florida, the way they can play in the back end of games, makes me feel like if they could stay in it for mainly the entire game, say to like the last 5 minutes, and Duke in Florida's down by 5, they're winning that game. I can confidently say that Florida would win that game. So, in short, I have my national champion being Florida. I have the Gators going out and beating the Auburn Tigers on the first game in what I think it has a chance to be an instant classic. We saw that the first time. It was a great game throughout. And in the other matchup, I have Houston narrowly defeating Duke, which would set up Florida against Houston. I have Florida winning the national championship. I still have the two regions that I had in the final from the get-go. I had Florida in the final. I had Tennessee originally in the other matchup. And I knew Tennessee or Houston would find a way to beat Duke because Duke really wouldn't play anyone. They played Bama, but they don't, like I said, they don't play defense. NATO's teams don't play defense. So, and by the way, Bama didn't shoot well along with didn't play defense. You knew that was going to be a blowout when you started some big shots not being hit by Bama. By Florida winning the national championship, which will send us now from the hardwood to the football pitch. Let's go over to the Premier League. We actually have a couple of leagues to talk about today. This is where the Footy Fridays portion of the video is coming in. Let me just, while I'm writing this down, make sure to like and subscribe. I would appreciate it. It's been a very chaotic recent couple of weeks here, but pretty soon I'll be going back to more full-time content creation along with hopefully some guests, mainly from either my internship or somewhere else. We will have people coming on this show, hopefully, or one of these shows. But let's talk about the Premier League. And the Prem everything's kicking off in the Prem now. We're heading towards the final stretch of the season. And the big story was this week, some big results occurred. And we also had some breaking news this morning, and we're going to talk about the significance of that as well. We're going to begin with the matchups in the midweek, which is where we were coming out of the, if you remember, we were coming out of the international break. We had a couple of big games in the Premier League on Tuesday, and one of them was Arsenal. They went out and they beat Fulham. They had to win. They did win at the expense of losing Gabriel for the season. Now, the significance of this win for Arsenal is, well, one, they can't catch a break. It's Arsenal. What did you expect? But Arsenal go out, they beat Fulham. They keep themselves in a quote-unquote title race. But at the end of the day, they're pretty much still out of it because Liverpool doesn't lose. Liverpool beat Everton, spoiler, which keeps Liverpool's ginormous gap over Arsenal with only a handful of matches to go. The Premier League title race is essentially settled. We will continue to moderate it as the season concludes in about 5 to 6 weeks. So there's still a lot that can happen, but the title race is essentially finished. But there's so much more that we will have to watch out for for European places and FA Cup final in a couple of weeks. We know the FA Cup semifinals. We'll preview that when that comes around. But the Premier League title seems to likely be going pretty much be sealed and completed to Liverpool at this point. But there weren't some other teams in match day 30 that went out without a fight. One of those teams that want to play in the Champions League next year. How am I still talking about them? How did they not fall off like Bournemouth? It's Nottingham Forest. Teams continue to get lost in the forest. I don't know what's going on. Nottingham Forest went out and beat Manchester United, which isn't that significant. Manchester United have been god awful this year. Understatement, by the way. But Nottingham, in a very tough match against Manchester United, saw the former Manchester United player, Anthony Elanga, score. Then there's some very funny chants afterwards. Nottingham wins 1-0 at the City Ground to keep them in third place, only 4 points behind Arsenal. By the way, I just got to go back to Arsenal for a second. I'm not going to make excuses for them on why this title race should not be closer. But if you look at the points gap, Arsenal's still 12 points behind. The amount of injuries they've had throughout this season has really affected this title race. Saka being out for 4 months, Kai Havertz being out for as long as he has, Gabriel Jesus tearing his ACL. They've had injuries now to, as mentioned, Gabriel. Calafiori's been hurt. Timber got picked up a knock early in the year. Ben White's been out for who knows how long. Arsenal have had a plethora of injuries. They've tried not to make excuses about it. I mean, hell, they play with essentially no strikers on the team for like all year long. Now they're rumored to sign like every striker because you know what team this is? They're rumored to sign every striker, then sign no one. It's like the New York Jets having all this hype to sign players that do nothing. Arsenal, who lost Havertz, they lost Gabby Jesus, they lost all their youth players because some of them went to United. It suck. The team sucks. The players don't suck that much. And Arsenal have trotted out a central midfielder, a box-to-box midfielder at striker, and it's kind of worked with Mikel Merino scoring again. Arsenal found ways to win that many other teams wouldn't, but them entering a Champions League fixture, which we're going to talk about in the back end of this segment, that's a little problematic to me that Arsenal have this many injuries. Now they're at the probably Kiwior against Mbappe. Concerning, I know. But we'll go back to the Arsenal talk later. Back to Nottingham. They deserve to win. They beat Manchester United 1-0. We're just going to roll through some of the other wins. Big win for Ipswich to keep themselves in the race to not be relegated. The one way they didn't get any help at all, was that Wolves went out and beat West Ham in the battle of irrelevancy. That's Wolves only their 8th win on the year, and Wolves remain 9 points clear of an Ipswich team that picked up a big 3 points on the road against Bournemouth, who have fallen off a cliff, and they kind of deserve it because they have done nothing in the second half. They've done absolutely nothing. And they've fallen all the way to 10th, which is kind of where I had them. I don't remember where I had them in the preseason, but I didn't have them being great. Dylan actually had Bournemouth being pretty high, and his pick's actually looking pretty good. But Bournemouth went out and lost to Ipswich, but Ipswich get no help from West Ham. By the way, my pick of the signing of the season, I think should have been my flop of the season with Nicholas Füllkrug, who's been completely crap for West Ham. I don't know I feel like he's only played in like 10 games. He hasn't scored. So I've cursed my player of the season twice now. I had Rasmus Højlund last year, and this year I've picked I went rogue and picked Füllkrug. Great job, Robbie. But there were some teams that would have to give a pat on the back to or a golf clap. We got to give a golf clap to Southampton. They got a point. Fire the Cannons. Southampton get their 6 points finish of the season in 30 matches. They have 2 wins, they have 4 draws, and they have 24 losses, 10 points with a negative 49 goal difference. They are on pace to also be one of the worst Prem teams ever. They can be relegated, I believe, with them losing 2 more games and Wolves winning a couple of times, and that rules them out. But they're going to get relegated. They are currently 19 points behind 17. They're essentially done. the Saints are going back down again, which really hurts for me personally. Other teams getting big results. Big one for Villa. They went out and beat Brighton 3-0. They controlled possession from start to finish. They scored some goals and they went out and won on Wednesday. Also picking up a big win was Newcastle against the startup in Brentford. Brentford, who've looked really good throughout this season. They're ninth in the league, which is right around where I had them in my prediction. Um, Isak, who's I don't know how much longer he's going to be at Newcastle. I know Arsenal's probably going to go for him, but I think Isak, class player. The Swede has been great. He scored in the latter stages of the first half, and it's Sandro Tonali who scores the winner after an Embuemo penalty to give 3 points to the Magpies, and they get a big win at home at St. James's Park. You mentioned Liverpool, big win for Manchester City as well. We have to go back to them in a second, but a major, major win for Chelsea. They went out and beat Tottenham, which, by the way, Arsenal has clinched finishing over Tottenham once again. I always got to give a golf clap to that one. Chelsea remain in fourth. Man City is still in a Europa League spot, which is absurd. Um, but let's quickly take a look at the Premier League table. Tottenham are 14th, which is music to my ears. Liverpool remain atop by 12 points. They have Arsenal, Nottingham, Chelsea, City, Newcastle, Aston Villa are in seventh, followed by Brighton, Fulham, Bournemouth. Brentford are actually 11th. My apologies. They fell after Fulham after something. Crystal Palace are 12th, and Manchester United, Tottenham, Everton, West Ham, and Wolves, with Ipswich, Leicester, and Southampton currently going down. Big win for Chelsea, as we mentioned before. Tottenham have looked like a complete mess this season. I think this could be one of those write-off seasons for them, but they're going to be back next year. They have Matisse Tell. I don't know if he's if it's a loan extent. I know I think they bought him permanently, so maybe next year could be the breakout year for Matisse Tell. He's still trying to grow into the league a little bit. I think Tottenham could be back, but 14th for Tottenham. That's absurd. They've won 10 games and are 14th. That's wild. They don't draw anyone. They've lost 16 games. They've lost more games than the team in 16 that's below them. They've lost more games than West Ham and Everton. That's wild. Um, but there was some big news today in the Premier League. That's with Kevin De Bruyne of Manchester City. He announced he's leaving. That's right, folks. Kevin De Bruyne is leaving at the end of the season for Manchester City. He's been there for what's felt like forever for me. He's been part of a plethora of title-winning teams from FA Cups and Carabao Cups, and he won a Champions League with Manchester City. He's won multiple Premier Leagues. He's won it all with them, essentially. Club World Cup, I believe they won as well. Um, on De Bruyne, I mean, the impact he's had for that Manchester City team is nothing short of significant. It's nothing short of significant. The way was able to control that midfield what's for so long with guys like Bernardo Silva in the back end of his stint with Rodri, that midfield trio caused so many problems for so many teams. The way De Bruyne can move the ball in the midfield, carry the ball from end to end. He could shoot on sight and bag a billion goals. He can pick out a pass that no one can see. He's the guy that is a Ballon d'Or type player if he's a Ballon d'Or type player if he can stay healthy. He still is. Kevin De Bruyne is a brilliant player and was a brilliant player for Manchester City. He's leaving them at the end of the season, which who knows who replaces him there. I know they have a good group there at Man City, but losing Kevin De Bruyne, losing a player that's been there for as long as he has is absolutely wild. And it completely caught me off guard this morning when I found out, or whenever it was, that Kevin De Bruyne was leaving. So KDB is leaving Man City. That club has they've had a really bad season. They're fifth in the Prem behind Chelsea. I don't know what happened there. Behind Chelsea and Nottingham. Like being behind Arsenal, even with all the injuries both of those teams have had, is still not the biggest deal in the world, but yikes. That's the big thing for that. Um, Premier League games to watch out for this week. Um, Aston Villa's playing Nottingham tomorrow on Saturday. It's a big game for two reasons. If Aston Villa wins, they can really throw themselves back into a major European race. If and Nottingham Forest wins and Arsenal finds a way to bottle it against Everton, which is so inevitable, it's unbelievable. Nottingham Forest can be 1 point off of second place. Granted, that second place spot isn't as significant, but if Manchester United find a way to grab a point against City, winning that match for Nottingham Forest is way more crucial because that could separate themselves as a team that could really clinch European competitions sooner rather than later. So if Nottingham win, City draw, it's an 8 point gap. But if, say, Nottingham Forest lose, Manchester City win, it's a 3 point gap. And and to both of those teams, that's nuts. That match at 12:30 on Saturday, absolutely seismic. I think that game could have so many implications to the European places. Another big one to me in the middle of the day, in the middle of the morning on Saturday, it's West Ham against Bournemouth. West Ham, I mean, Bournemouth have to win. If they want to go into Europe, they have to win. I'll keep it simple. They've been terrible in the second half of the year. They were the team that fell off a cliff, kind of like what West Ham did in the second half of last year. But Bournemouth in the second half have been god awful, and they just can't win games. Also, big game tomorrow. It's Ipswich against Wolves, and I wish I could. That was the game I'm commentating, but unfortunately, it's not. If Ipswich win, they are 6 points off of getting out of relegation with only a handful of games to go. If Wolves win, then it's the relegation race is essentially over, and the three teams that went up ahead of this season are all going back down for the second consecutive year. This has to be an opportunity of capitalizing for Ipswich. Liam Delap can only do so much. This Ipswich team has to come out and win this game. And best part, it's on the USA Network tomorrow. So I will be watching that game during breakfast. But Ipswich against Wolves, a couple of months ago, you'd be like, that game's not significant at all. Whoever, if Wolves win, the relegation race is essentially done. It'd be a 12-point gap with only like 5 or 6 games to go. 7 maybe. Like there's not a lot of time left in the Premier League season, and if Ipswich don't want to get relegated, they have to win this game. I have that game being a draw, unfortunately. Predictions though, I have Arsenal beating Everton 1-0 because that's just how the way this game is going to go, and we're going to win off a corner, even though in honor of Gabriel. And I also think they're going to rotate ahead of the Champions League. I have a 1-1 between Wolves and Ipswich. I have a 2-1 win for Crystal Palace. They've been great at home this year. They've had a resurgence to being 12th. I mean, I know resurgence to 12th isn't a lot, but at one point they were possibly threatening for Europe. They've been great. Crystal Palace, I think they've been good. They're going to beat Brighton. I have West Ham beating Bournemouth, which kind of against what I just said. But Bournemouth, with the form they've been in, they don't deserve to win a game. I have West Ham winning this game 1-0. I have Aston Villa defeating Nottingham. I know like this impact that a win would be for Nottingham Forest, but with the way Villa can play, the way they can score goals at home, I just have to pick Villa here. I have Villa winning 2-1. Ahead of Sunday's games, we got Tottenham against Southampton. Tottenham wins 3-1. Need I say more? We got Liverpool taking on Fulham. I think this game could cause problems for Liverpool. I have them winning this game 1-0. It just feels inevitable for them that Liverpool find a way to just win in the end. They did that against Everton. They've done that all year. They're going to win again here against Fulham. And then on Monday, we got Leicester against Newcastle. I think could be a situation where Newcastle drops points. Leicester has to win, even though they're probably getting relegated anyway, like I've said before. But I have Leicester. Not Leicester. I have Newcastle winning this game. I have them winning 2-1. I'll go 2-1, despite Newcastle still being a terrible team on the road this year. But it leaves us with 2 games left, and we're going to try and get a little bit of a move on because we still have to talk about the Champions League and one other team. We got Brentford against Chelsea, 2 teams that have had very interesting stories throughout the year. Brentford, who were really in a European race a couple of weeks ago, have kind of fallen off. Chelsea are in 4th. I have Brentford winning this game against Chelsea. I have Brentford winning 1-0. I think Brentford have caused teams a lot of problems at the community stadium. I think they'll do it to Chelsea again. Give me Brentford winning 1-0, which sets us up for Manchester United against Manchester City. The Manchester Derby is here. Two teams that have gone in polar opposite directions. Man City just losing De Bruyne. They're out of the Champions League. They're in the FA Cup semifinals, but that's all where they're going to be. United are out of everything. They're not even in the relegation race. So this game means pretty much nothing to them other than for the rivalry, and that is why I have this game being a draw. I have this game being a 2-2 draw. This game feels so inevitable to be a draw that I'm going with draw. I think the way Manchester United can control possession at home, they have to score goals. This team can't score. It pisses me off to even talk about them. Manchester United have scored less goals than Wolves, who are 17th. This is Manchester United. Granted, Palace don't score either, but Palace defends. Manchester United doesn't defend. They have a -4 goal difference, which begs you the question, how the hell are Tottenham behind them? Because Tottenham have a +11 with 55 goals, and they still suck, which I don't know how that's possible. You tell me. Manchester United are going to draw this game because it just feels inevitable. 2-2 my prediction, which sends us to the Champions League and the one team we have to talk about before quickly discussing F1, because I almost forgot about F1. And we are into the Champions League quarterfinals today. This coming up next week. We'll briefly preview the games now. We'll definitely talk about it on the upcoming video of the Robbie Basel show. It's Aston Villa against PSG. It's Dortmund against Barca. It's Arsenal against Real Madrid and Inter against Bayern. We're gonna predict the first leg. We're only doing the first leg. I don't know how the rest of the ties. We'll go first leg. Yeah, let's go first leg. We'll start it off. We have Arsenal against Real Madrid on Wednesday. I have no idea how this is going to go. Like Arsenal, everyone could be in the infirmary by the end of the day Sunday. Though Bukayo Saka is back. He just scored against Fulham. I've almost forgot to mention that Saka, the star boy, is back for Arsenal. But Real Madrid are just too powerful. This game's at the Bernabeu. Um, it just feels like something Arsenal can't handle. Is this game at the Bernabeu? Where is this game? Oh no, this game's at Arsenal. What am I saying? Apparently my phone sent me to the second leg. Arsenal at home. I knew this game was at the Emirates. Against Real Madrid. I have Real Madrid winning 2-0. Arsenal have struggled to score goals at certain points in bigger teams. I have them doing it here. This Real Madrid defense, this Real Madrid team is nothing like Arsenal have faced all season long. Not even Liverpool, not even Man City can compare to what this Real Madrid team brings to you on paper. Not only that, with all the injuries Arsenal have, I just don't feel like they can create enough. And I have Real Madrid carving through the midfield and defense. Give me Real Madrid 2-0. Big matchup in Munich. It's Bayern against Inter. Bayern have looked great this season. I got to give Bayern their flowers. Despite them not being like PSG at all, Bayern Munich are top of the Bundesliga. They've only lost 2 games all season. They've been flying all year. They've won 3 of 5. They've also drawn a game and lost. But the reason they're on top of the Bundesliga is because Bayer Leverkusen absolutely bottled it. Bayer Leverkusen lost to a third-tier side in the DFB Pokal this week, which what the hell is that? Like, what is that tournament? That tournament and the Coupe de France are amazing. I wish I could talk about it, but with this video, it would take 6 years. We have Bayern against Inter. I have that game being a draw. I think those two teams match up really well on paper. The Bayern can score with Harry Kane and company, and Inter can score with a guy like Lautaro Martinez. I think that matchup will be very even from end to end. It's two teams that know each other that are both very good. But I have Bayern drawing the game at the Allianz Arena. I have that game being 1-1. Barca against Dortmund. That matchup happened. I thought in the Champions League last year. I might be drawing a blank. That matchup in Barcelona. Barcelona have been a lot of controversy this week. Or I think La Liga as a whole is because La Liga tried to not let Barca register, had to unregister players, and then Barca won the case. I don't honestly know enough about that to really comment on that. Which, if I just describe exactly what happened, La Liga's in shambles. Barca's gonna win this game because of the energy they will have after trying to get screwed by La Liga, the team that's pretty much been I think the best team in the world this year because they didn't get knocked out in the round of 16 in the first round of the Champions League. This Barca team is really, really good. Dortmund are good as well in their own right, and Dortmund just feel like they can control any match in the Champions League. Not this one. Not in Barcelona, Spain. I have Barca winning this one 1-0 against Dortmund. And then we have Paris Saint-Germain, which this is going to be one of my favorite segments of the year. PSG. Let's talk about them under Luis Enrique. Let's talk about PSG. They've had an unbeaten season so far in Ligue 1. They're going to win the Ligue 1 title again. They've been great in the Champions League, excluding the league phase because they were completely trash. They've been great in the French Cup. I mean, in the Champions League, they beat Brest 10-0 in aggregate because they can. They went out and then they beat Liverpool, and now they're going up against another English team in Aston Villa. Luis Enrique has taken this club and PSG from being without Kylian Mbappe, without some of these star name players from just a couple of seasons ago, even just last year, to a team that can still compete for a Champions League in the end. This PSG team is not a pushover. They will not be a pushover because of the confidence they will have after playing in France. They are taking on an Aston Villa team that on paper get completely outmatched by PSG just because of the run of form that PSG are in. I have PSG winning this first leg 3-0. I have PSG winning 3-0. They are a team that can control every facet of a contest better than 99% of clubs in the world. They are a team that can do that if everything goes right. And I feel like in a matchup like this against Unai Emery's Aston Villa, a team that's been really streaky defensively throughout this year, this is a moment where PSG can say, let's go for it. They can go out there and score a bunch of goals early on and just settle for the rest of the contest. I have PSG winning this game 3-0. This is a tie that PSG have to win. If they lose, that is one of the more humiliating moments for PSG is bottling it against an upper mid-table team from the Prem. Aston Villa are not as good as PSG. They lost to Ron. They've been okay in the Premier League this season by their new standards. But this PSG team, they are unbeaten in the French Cup. I believe they're gonna go for an invincible in not the Champions League, in Ligue 1. They've won 22, they've drawn 5, they lost nothing. They lost none of the games, and they are 21 points clear of Monaco. That's an incredible season for them. An unbeaten season for this PSG team would be miraculous. Because while people call Ligue 1 a farmers league, there's still a lot of quality in Ligue 1. From Monaco to Marseille to Nice and Lille. Strasbourg's having a great season. They're in 6th, currently in a European place. But really, it's been PSG in a league of their own, and that's mainly because of Luis Enrique's tactics. They don't have a true star player up front anymore. Remember, just a couple seasons ago, they had Neymar, Mbappe, and Lionel Messi. They have none of them now, and they look better than when they had them. That's unbelievable. This team is outperforming all of my expectations for them. They've been great, and they have a chance to be even more great if they can finally go over the hump and win a Champions League. I don't think they do it because there are a couple of teams that are better than them, but the way they should completely outclass Aston Villa is why I'm so confident in them. I have them winning the first leg 3-0 and going to Villa Park way out in front. That's my Champions League prediction. They've pretty much talked about everything we need to talk about, other than a Robbie Basel show segment. With Formula One, we're going to Japan. Real quick, we're going to give my predictions for the Japanese Grand Prix. I'll give my top 3 in qualifying predictions right now. A race that's going to be very unpredictable. I think there's a good chance that it could be wet, I think, as well. Remember, the first race of the season was a wet. One of the season races early on was a wet race. The race in Australia. Then we've had utter chaos throughout the week. And now if you look at for some reason my apps are not working now. We are in Suzuka, which granted is not one of my favorite tracks, but it could cause some chaos. There's a good threat of rain. Uh, I believe in the beginning of the race. I don't really remember what part of the race it would be in. Let me just check for. Yeah, it'd be right at the beginning of the race and would pretty much go throughout the race, probably to the last 10 laps or so. This race could be very chaotic, and you gotta have confidence in people who've been here before. Of course, big news this week for Red Bull is they have Yuki Tsunoda in the second Red Bull seat. Let's talk about my prediction. By the way, they've Lawson back in the V carb, which makes a lot more sense. Lawson actually outdrove Tsunoda in FP2, which is pretty freaking hilarious. Um, let's give some predictions for this race. So qualifying tonight. It's at 1 a.m. Eastern time. No, 2 a.m. Eastern time, Friday night into Saturday. What are my predictions? First off, um, pole, I have Oscar Piastri. I know that's like a not fancy pick. I have Oscar going on pole here at Suzuka. P2, I'm going to go with Lando Norris. I know another unoriginal pick here, but with the way that McLaren has looked at the beginning of the season, you know I'm wearing this shirt. I have to pick both of them early. Um, and then P3, I got George Russell. George Russell has really shocked me so far during practice. That Mercedes looks better than I thought it would be. I have him third. We'll go with the rest of the top five. Then I'm going to have Hamilton. And I'm going to have Leclerc with Verstappen being sixth. That Red Bull looks terrible. But for the race, who am I most confident in? The wet. I am going with Lando Norris again, winning the Japanese Grand Prix. I picked him to win I picked him to win something. I don't remember. But the guy I predicted to win the Drivers' Championship, I have him winning this race. I have Lando Norris winning. Second place, I'm actually not gonna have Oscar Piastri. Second place, I'm gonna be confident in a guy who's great. In the wet tires, I want to go Max second. I'm not gonna pick Max second. Um, Second place, I'm gonna go Hamilton. I think George Russell is gonna collapse. Kind of like what Oscar did again in Australia, but not to the same extent. I'm gonna have a rebound for Ferrari. I'm gonna have Hamilton second. I'm gonna have Oscar Piastri third, with fourth place being Leclerc. I'm gonna fifth place Max. He does make up a position due to the bottle job by Russell. Um, Biggest surprise, if I had to give one, I'm gonna say a point for Lawson. I think Lawson redemption arc would be really funny in a race like this. Um, he's looked decent in that V carb so far. Just saying, V carb looks good. Lawson looks good in the V carb chat. Don't be scared. Um, I do have Lawson getting a point this weekend for V carb. As my pen falls, you know what time it is. That means we are at the end of today's video. Thank you guys so much for tuning into the Robbie Basel Show and Footy Fridays mashup. Hopefully, we go back to a regular schedule soon. Make sure to like and subscribe. First, watch along. Footy Fridays watch along is this weekend. It's the Manchester Derby, Manchester United versus Man City, right here. Coverage beginning just after 11 a.m. Eastern time. I'm so excited for that, by the way, guys. Make sure to tune in. But for now, I'm Robbie Basel saying so long. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye, everyone.